Train your mind. Learn to become limitless. Carl Jung on emotional growth. Have you ever stood at the edge of a decision, a dream, a new version of yourself and felt an invisible wall? A force that holds you back, whispering that you are not ready, not worthy, not enough. Have you ever wondered what truly limits you? Is it your past, your circumstances, the opinions of others, or is it something deeper, something unseen, operating from the shadows of your own mind? For decades, we have been told to conquer our limits, to hustle harder, to think positively and push through the barriers. But what if the greatest barrier isn't outside of us at all? The pioneering psychoanalyst Carl Jung understood this with a clarity that remains revolutionary to this day. He proposed that our most profound limitations are not external walls, but internal shadows. They are the unseen scripts, the forgotten memories, the disowned parts of ourselves that silently dictate the course of our lives day by day, choice by choice. But here is the secret that Jung unlocked, the promise we will explore together today. Your mind is not a prison, it is a labyrinth. And within this intricate, mysterious labyrinth are hidden two things side by side, the very source of your limitations and the key to your boundless, limitless potential. The journey to becoming limitless, in the Jungian sense, is not a battle for control. It is an alchemical process of inner exploration. It is a quest to confront the shadows, to recognize the ancient archetypes that live within you, and to awaken the dormant, forgotten parts of your soul. It is the art of turning inward, so that when the world outside descends into chaos, you remain unshakable, anchored in the true center of your being. If you are watching this, it is because some part of you is ready. An inner stirring has begun, a quiet rebellion against the old walls. In this video, we will not offer you simple tricks or hollow affirmations. We will give you a map into the labyrinth of your own mind. You will learn why your deepest fears, your most persistent doubts, and your oldest wounds are not enemies to be vanquished, but guides waiting to be understood. You will discover that true freedom is not found in controlling the world, but in making peace with the vast, mysterious, and powerful universe within you. So take a deep breath. Quiet the noise around you, because in this moment we step together into the labyrinth. This is not just a journey to find answers. It is a journey to rediscover the infinite self you have forgotten. Are you ready to begin? Number 1. The unseen architect, understanding the nature of the limited mind. Our journey begins with a fundamental truth, a truth that forms the very bedrock of Jung's entire philosophy. The limits that define your reality are not born from the world you see, but from the world within you that you don't see. These are not loud, obvious chains. They are silent, invisible threads woven from thoughts you repeat so often you no longer hear them. This is what Jung called the unconscious. And it is here, in this deep, submerged continent of the psyche, that your true limits are forged. A limited mind is not a weak mind. It is a mind that has been severed from its own depths. When we live only on the surface, in the small, well-lit room of our conscious awareness, the ego we believe we are in control. We think our rational thoughts are the captains of our ship. But Jung offered a humbling perspective. Human consciousness, he said, is like a tiny island in the vast, dark ocean of the unconscious. The island is where we live our daily lives, but it is the ocean's currents, deep, powerful, and unseen, that truly determine where we are going. Think of the patterns in your own life. The relationship that ends in the same way with a different person. The promise to yourself to be more disciplined, which dissolves by the end of the week. The sudden, irrational wave of anxiety or jealousy that grips you, even when your logical mind knows there is no real threat. This is not a failure of willpower. This is the unconscious, the unseen architect, directing your behavior from behind the curtain. Buried memories, unresolved childhood wounds, and repressed fears do not simply disappear. They crystallize in the unconscious and re-emerge as emotions, choices, and gut reactions. We don't recognize them, but they are the silent software running in the background of our minds, compelling us to repeat the same script, just with different actors and on different stages. Jung called this the repetition of the unconscious. The adult who fears abandonment carries within them a child who once felt left alone. The high achiever, outwardly confident, may harbor a deep-seated belief that they are not good enough, born from a single critical comment decades ago. The unconscious is not the past that is over. It is the past that is still living right now in your present moment. And as long as you have not made it conscious, you are living within the invisible fence it has built around you. The most profound limit of a human being is not circumstance. It is the identification with the narrow ego. The ego is the part of you that says, I am a successful professional. I am a spiritual person. I am not an angry person. The ego creates a story, an identity, and its primary job is to protect that story at all costs. It's like a small, brightly lit room where we feel safe because we can see everything. But outside that room is an entire mansion, filled with locked doors, forgotten corridors, and hidden treasures. That is the rest of you. We believe we are living a full life, but in reality, we are confined to a single room of our own being. When you hear that inner voice say, I can't change, I'm just not a creative person, or this is just my luck, you are not hearing objective truth. You are hearing the voice of the limited unconscious, a narrative constructed from old beliefs and experiences you have never dared to revisit. It is faulty programming, but because you do not see the code, you believe it is the only operating system available. But here is where the path to becoming limitless begins. The unconscious is not just a dark cellar of forgotten trauma. It is also the fertile soil of your greatest potential. It holds your deepest creative instincts, your most profound intuition, and a wisdom that transcends rational thought. Jung believed that within every person lies the self, the archetype of wholeness, the true unified being where all conflicts are resolved and all potential becomes reality. But to even approach the self, you must first pass through the door of understanding your own limits. Limits do not disappear when you deny them. They only dissolve when you have the courage to look at them without judgment. Many people spend their lives fleeing from their inner world. They work more, chase more success, seek more external validation, believing they can outrun their own shadow. But the faster they run, the longer the shadow grows behind them. As Jung famously wrote, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Think of the highly successful people who, despite all their achievements, feel a profound emptiness. On the outside, they appear limitless, but inside, they are still trapped by the fear of losing control, the fear of not being enough, the very fears they tried to escape through success. The limited mind is not a matter of circumstance, but a matter of self-awareness. When you begin to observe your own mind without immediate reaction, the first glimmers of freedom appear. Notice how you react when criticized, the heat that rises in your chest, the immediate defensiveness. That is the unconscious at work. But if you can pause just for a second and ask, what part of me is this really touching? What old story is being activated right now? In that moment, you have taken a monumental step. You are no longer the reaction. You are the one observing the reaction. When the mind begins to watch itself, the prison walls become transparent. You see the patterns, the triggers, the irrational beliefs that once held you captive, and as the light of your awareness shines into these dark corners, the limits begin to lose their power. Jung's most powerful reminder is this: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is not a warning, it is an invitation to turn inward, to explore your own mind, not with fear, but with the courage of an adventurer. Because only when we dare to look into the vast, dark ocean within do we discover that we are not the island, but the entire ocean itself. And this is only the first step on our journey. Number 2, the shadow befriending your darkest self. Once you realize that your greatest limits are not outside but inside, the true quest begins. Because when the lamp of your awareness starts to glow, it will inevitably illuminate the regions you have spent a lifetime avoiding. It will reveal the disowned, the rejected, the parts of yourself you have deemed unacceptable. This is what Carl Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the gatekeeper holding the key to your wholeness. Jung believed that for every quality we consciously cultivate and show to the world, our kindness, our strength, our morality, there exists an opposite, repressed quality that is pushed down into the darkness of the unconscious. Our raw instincts, our unspoken anger, our envy, our forbidden desires, our deepest insecurities, all of this becomes the shadow. It is the psychic baggage we carry, but pretend isn't ours. From our earliest years, we are taught to split ourselves. Good boys don't get angry. Nice girls aren't selfish. We learn to perform the role of the right person, and in doing so, we begin to exile parts of our true nature. But the shadow does not disappear when it is denied. It only grows stronger in the dark, and it will find a way to express itself, and its favorite way is through projection. Have you ever felt an intense, irrational hatred for someone? A celebrity, a colleague, a public figure? Pay close attention. Jung suggested that the qualities that infuriate us most in others are often the very qualities we have disowned in ourselves. When you rage against someone's arrogance, it may be because you have suppressed your own ambition and desire for recognition. When you judge someone harshly for their weakness, it may be because you are terrified of the vulnerability you hide within your own heart. We cast our unwanted traits onto others, turning the world into a screen on which we project our own inner drama. The paradox is that the more fiercely we deny the shadow, the more powerfully it controls us from behind the scenes. The person who proudly proclaims, "I never get angry," is often the one seething with repressed rage that poisons their relationships and their health. The person obsessed with controlling every detail of their life is often driven by a deep, unconscious fear of their own inner chaos. The shadow is like a caged animal. The more you ignore it, the more violently it rattles the bars, appearing in your dreams as monsters, in your life as self-sabotaging behaviors, and in your soul as a nameless anxiety you can't escape. Jung often said that in what we fear most lies our greatest treasure. The shadow is not just a container for the negative, it is also the wellspring of our vitality, our creativity, our passion, and our authenticity. Every human quality has a light and dark aspect. Your anger, when integrated, becomes the fuel for setting boundaries and fighting for justice. Your sensitivity, when owned, becomes the source of empathy and artistic expression. But when these qualities are repressed into the shadow, their energy is lost to us, or worse, it turns against us. The journey to become limitless requires what Jung called shadow integration. This is not about becoming a good person by eliminating the bad parts. It is about becoming a whole person by learning to dialogue with them. The shadow is like a neglected child, acting out not to destroy you but to get your attention. When you finally turn to it and ask, "What are you trying to tell me? What do you need?" it begins to transform. It is no longer a monster, but a wounded part of you seeking healing. Many believe the spiritual path is a journey upwards, towards the light. For Jung, it was a journey downwards, into the depths of the psyche. Like an archaeologist excavating a buried city, the deeper you dig, the more you uncover the forgotten history of your soul. This is why he insisted that true enlightenment is not born from imagining light, but from passing through the darkness. In your everyday life, confronting the shadow begins with radical honesty. Observe your day. When do you feel a surge of intense emotion? When do you find yourself being defensive, judgmental, or overreacting? Each strong reaction is a breadcrumb, leading you back to a hidden part of yourself. If you can pause in that moment without running, without blaming, and simply look inward with curiosity, you are beginning the sacred work of integration. And as you listen to this, perhaps a part of your own shadow is stirring, a feeling of resistance or maybe a flicker of recognition. Let it be there. Acknowledge it. What part of you have you been trying to keep hidden? Jung believed that only by embracing our shadow can we become truly three-dimensional. Light gives us hope, but darkness gives us depth. Light gives us joy, but darkness gives us strength. The process of confronting the shadow is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming real. And once you have faced your own darkness, a new, deeper door in the labyrinth opens. Number 3, the ancient script, archetypes and the collective unconscious. Once you have dared to look into your personal shadow, you discover that you are not just a product of your own life story. You are connected to something far older, far vaster. This is where the journey takes a turn from the personal to the universal. This is the world of the archetypes. If the personal unconscious holds the forgotten parts of your individual life, Jung proposed a deeper layer, the collective unconscious. He described it as the psychic inheritance of all humanity. It is a shared reservoir of experiences, symbols, and primordial patterns that have been repeated for millennia, encoded in our very psychological DNA. Jung said the archetype is like the ancient invisible bed of a river. The water of life, your personal experiences, is always changing, but it flows through these same deep, pre-existing channels. And these invisible currents silently shape how we love, how we fear, how we create, and how we find meaning. You do not live in a vacuum. Your mind is woven from the fabric of countless myths and stories. When you fall in love, you are often not just loving a person, you are responding to the anima or animus archetype they awaken in you, the inner image of the ideal counterpart. When you embark on a difficult challenge, you are often living out the hero's journey. When you sacrifice for a cause, you are embodying the martyr. When you seek knowledge, you are guided by the sage. We believe our choices are entirely our own, but often we are unconsciously reenacting these ancient, powerful scripts. Imagine that within you exists an entire inner cast of characters: the nurturing mother, the fierce warrior, the innocent child, the wise sage, the playful trickster. Each archetype carries its own unique power, its own lesson, and its own potential pitfall. The danger arises when we become possessed by a single archetype, allowing its script to run our entire life. Someone possessed by the savior archetype feels compelled to fix everyone around them, often sacrificing their own well-being and boundaries. Someone dominated by the wanderer may never be able to commit to a home, a career, or a relationship, always seeking something new, driven by an unconscious fear of being trapped. Pause for a moment. Close your eyes. Which of these roles feels most familiar to you right now? The hero, striving for victory? The orphan, seeking a place to belong? The rebel, fighting against the rules? Simply by recognizing the pattern, you are beginning to pull back the curtain on the deepest layer of your unconscious. Jung saw archetypes as living forces in the psyche. Every time we dream, we are in direct communication with them. Recurring dream images, an old house, a mysterious guide, an endless ocean, are not random nonsense. They are symbols, the language the collective unconscious uses to speak to you. Modern science, while using different language, is beginning to validate this concept. Neuroscience has shown that our brains are hardwired for pattern recognition and storytelling. We are meaning-making machines. Ancient myths, epic films like Star Wars, and even modern video games resonate so deeply with us because they tap into these universal archetypal patterns. You are not just watching a story. You are seeing a part of your own soul's ancient script played out on screen. According to Jung, the ultimate goal of life is not to be dominated by any single archetype, but to integrate them. This is the path of individuation. Each archetype has a light side and a shadow side. The mother can be nurturing, but she can also be smothering. The warrior can be a protector, but he can also be a destructive brute. When we are conscious of which archetype we are channeling, we gain the freedom to choose how to express its energy, rather than being pulled along by its ancient, unconscious script. Think of the archetypes as the instruments in the grand orchestra of your soul. If you only play the drum of the warrior, your life will be a constant battle. If you only play the flute of the child, you will never mature. But when you, the conductor, learn to listen to the entire orchestra, knowing when to call upon the wisdom of the sage, the courage of the warrior, the compassion of the mother, and the playfulness of the trickster, that is when the music of your life becomes a rich, harmonious symphony. Archetypes are not there to limit you. They are there to help you remember the vastness of what it means to be human. They are the bridge between your personal story and the great story of humanity itself. And when you learn their language, you discover that the path to becoming limitless is not about creating something new, but about awakening the ancient, powerful forces that have been sleeping within you all along. Number 4, the alchemical fire, the process of individuation. We have journeyed into the personal unconscious and faced the shadow. We have explored the collective unconscious and met the archetypes. Now, we arrive at the heart of Jung's entire life's work. A new question emerges. How do we take all these fragmented, often conflicting parts of ourselves and forge them into a unified, authentic whole? The answer lies in the lifelong quest that Jung called the process of individuation. This is the journey of becoming who you truly are. It is the sacred alchemical process of returning to the self, where you are no longer just a piece of yourself, but a complete, awakened, and free being. According to Jung, most of us live in a state of inner civil war. One part of us wants security, while another craves adventure. One part yearns for deep connection, while another is terrified of being hurt. We are a collection of psychic fragments, each one pulling in a different direction. The I we present to the world, our ego, is merely the exhausted diplomat trying to negotiate a truce between these warring factions. Individuation is the journey of transforming this inner battlefield into a united kingdom. It is about reconciling the ego with the vastness of the unconscious, the person you think you are with the person you were born to be. Crucially, individuation does not mean becoming separate or selfish. In fact, it is the opposite. It is the process of achieving such profound inner unity that you can connect with the world more authentically and compassionately than ever before. When you begin this journey in earnest, life often becomes more chaotic, not less. What has been suppressed for years will rise to the surface to be seen. It is like cleaning out a long-neglected attic. You must first contend with the dust, the cobwebs, and the forgotten ghosts before the space can be filled with light. In psychology, this is often called an identity crisis or a dark night of the soul. The career that once defined you feels meaningless. The relationships that once sustained you feel hollow. It feels like your world is falling apart. But from a Jungian perspective, this is not an end. It is a sign of profound transformation. The old narrow ego is beginning to dissolve to make way for a much larger, more inclusive consciousness. Jung called this the sacred confrontation between the temporary ego and the eternal self. Imagine a snake shedding its skin. The old skin was not wrong, it was necessary for a time, but it has become too tight, too constricting. The snake cannot grow unless it endures the vulnerability of shedding it. In the individuation journey, you too must shed the old skins of your identity, the beliefs that once protected you but have now become your prison. I must always be strong. I cannot fail. I am only lovable if I am perfect. These are the skins you once needed, but to become whole, you must let them go. We see this process everywhere. The executive who leaves a high-paying job to become a carpenter, the parent who, after their children leave home, finally pursues the art they abandoned decades ago. On the surface, these are life changes, but deep down, they are manifestations of the soul's demand for unity. The split between what I do and who I am has become unbearable, and the self is calling for integration. This is the call of the self, which Jung believed everyone hears at some point in their lives, sometimes in a moment of great pain, sometimes in a quiet feeling of emptiness, sometimes in a dream that haunts you for days. To become whole, you must be willing to die to your old self. A powerful symbol Jung used for this process is the mandala, the sacred circle found in countless spiritual traditions. The mandala represents wholeness, cosmic order, and the integration of opposites. Jung discovered that his patients would often spontaneously draw or dream of mandalas during pivotal moments in their therapy. It was the psyche's own way of showing that, out of the chaos of their inner world, a new, more integrated center, the self, was beginning to form. The individuation process never truly ends. It is not a destination you arrive at, but a rhythm of living. It is a continuous dance of exploring the unconscious, confronting the shadows, integrating the archetypes, and then beginning the cycle anew, each time from a place of greater awareness. Each time you choose to be more honest with yourself, you take a step closer to the self. Each time you reject a part of yourself, you prolong the journey. And this is why Jung stated, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. But something miraculous happens when you walk this path. The outer world begins to reorganize itself to reflect your inner world. Toxic relationships fall away. New opportunities appear. You no longer live your life chasing things. You begin to live from the center of your being. This, Jung believed, is the ultimate purpose of a human life. Not happiness, not success, but wholeness. Number 5. The Alchemist's Tools, Training the Mind for a Limitless Life. We have journeyed through the labyrinth, met the gatekeepers, and understood the quest for wholeness. Now we arrive at the most practical and crucial question. How do we live this? How do we train the mind not just to understand these concepts, but to embody them, making us freer, deeper, and more awakened with each passing day? This is what Jung called the art of living with the unconscious. Knowledge without practice is just information. Practice is what transforms the soul. For Jung, training the mind was not about forcing positivity or suppressing negative emotions. That is the way of the ego. The way of the self is to learn to observe every movement within you with a compassionate, unconditional awareness. When you can witness a thought without being carried away by it, feel an emotion without becoming it, you have begun to master your mind. One of the most powerful tools Jung offered for this is active imagination. This is a method of communicating directly with your unconscious. It is like a conscious dream, a dialogue with your inner archetypes. Instead of just analyzing a dream or a mood, you invite it to speak. Here is how you can practice it. Find a quiet space. Close your eyes and bring to mind a recurring image from a dream, a strong emotion you're feeling, or even a physical sensation. Instead of pushing it away, invite it to take a form. Perhaps your anxiety becomes a frightened animal. Perhaps your anger becomes a figure of fire. Then you begin the dialogue. Ask it with genuine curiosity. Who are you? Why are you here? What do you want from me? Do not judge the answers, simply listen. In this process, the unconscious begins to reveal its wisdom. The frightened animal may just want safety. The figure of fire may be protecting a boundary. You are no longer fighting these inner forces. You are learning from them. Alongside this, Jung considered dream journaling to be indispensable. He saw dreams as personal letters from the self. Every night, the unconscious sends you messages, reflecting the parts of your life and yourself that you are not seeing in your waking hours. When you wake, before you do anything else, write down everything you can remember. The images, the feelings, the characters, the symbols. Do not try to interpret them immediately. Just collect the data. Over time, you will begin to see patterns. You are training your conscious mind to listen to its deeper, wiser counterpart. Finally, Jung valued inner stillness. In an age before mindfulness was a buzzword, he understood the profound power of simply sitting quietly and watching the river of the mind flow by without being swept away by it. In that stillness, you realize that you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the vast silent awareness in which they arise and pass away. You are the sky, not the storm. Neuroscience is now proving what Jung knew intuitively. Practices like meditation, journaling, and creative imagination physically rewire the brain. They strengthen the connections between the prefrontal cortex, the seat of awareness, and the limbic system, the seat of emotion. You are literally building the neural pathways for greater self-regulation, wisdom, and inner peace. Ultimately, training the mind is a lifelong art. It is a way of living with the profound understanding that the unconscious is not a monster to be feared, but a wise and powerful ally. Every dream, every intense emotion, every strange coincidence is a message. When you learn to listen, you no longer stumble through life blindly. You begin to dance with it, guided by your own inner compass. And that is when the mind is truly trained for freedom. Not because you have finally controlled it, but because you have finally befriended it. As our journey through the labyrinth comes to a close for today, what remains is not a complex map, but a simple feeling, a quiet settling in the center of your chest. You may begin to hear your own inner voice more clearly, no longer drowned out by the noise of self-doubt or external expectation. The rush to prove, to fix, to control begins to soften. You stand still long enough to realize that what you once called fate was merely the fog of the unconscious, now gently dissolving in the light of your awareness. From this still point, life no longer roars like a race to be won. It flows like a river, and you have learned to navigate its currents. This change does not announce itself with thunder. It grows silently, like a seed pushing its way through hard soil, patient and certain. Then, one ordinary morning, you will look out at the world, and while nothing outside has changed, you will realize that everything within you is different. You have become calm enough, whole enough to finally be at peace. If the call to go deeper still echoes within you, do not let it fade. Stay with us on this journey into the vast country of the soul, so that each week, each exploration can become another mirror reflecting your own magnificent truth. Click subscribe if you are ready to continue this quest. Let this be a space where the light you have found today does not just flicker, but grows into a steady, guiding flame. Thank you for walking this path with us.